I must say I'm constantly in a battle with the ultra cynics who claim to have gotten everything right during COVID because basically they never believe anything. That's not a method.
You got lucky.
Right, you got lucky. So it happened
You
that you
stumbled into a full con game.
you stumbled into a con game, and yes, you didn't buy it, but that's not a demonstration that you know how to think through the next one.
Right.
Right?
Correct.
It doesn't demonstrate anything.
Right.
So what I really want are people who had a good track record and who know what mistakes they made and know how not to make them in the future. Those are the people that we should be paying attention to.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Bret, you dum-dum, okay? Don't you think that those people who you think were right about COVID only because they don't believe anything, maybe, first of all, I don't think all of the people who are right about COVID don't believe anything, though that is certainly a subset of the people and not without good reason. But don't you think how they got to the point where they didn't fall for COVID from the beginning was prior experience with one of these things where they got it wrong and had to course correct and think and reflect and all of that kind of stuff, and maybe had that happen multiple times before they started to recognize that there were signs and patterns and people who always showed up and whatever. And most of those people did not immediately, after realizing that they had once gotten something wrong and over the course of its run shifted positions and were now in the position where they saw things correctly, did not feel like that they should be like in charge of making the push to make sure this, that, or the other thing never happens again, or explaining to everybody else, how right they were, except for the moment before when they were wrong. Like, that's how it works. That's how people get to a place where they either A, recognize bullshit when they see it, or B, become so cynical that they don't believe anything, because the more you do this, the longer you look at it, it's the same cast of characters conducting the clown show every fucking time. Have you ever seen Scooby-Doo? Bret, have you ever seen Scooby-Doo? If not, that's your homework. Go ahead.
That was priceless. So I love that he's devolved into name calling and marginalizing very standard issue
Right.
Propaganda technique. And he says that doesn't demonstrate anything. It's like, are we auditioning? Are we
Right.
trying to I don't think we were doing what we were doing from the get-go, from the jump, from second one, to audition to be part of Bret's team. I think we were just doing what we do, which is recognize patterns, which is like prime characteristic of intelligence. But he makes it seem like we were auditioning and we didn't impress him, Emily. We just didn't impress Bret with getting it right. But instead, the people we should be listening to are the ones who got it wrong and have demonstrated that they could figure things out 2 years after the fact, 4 years after the fact, kind of, because we have another clip.
I don't want my government lying to me ever again with the excuse that it's for my own good.
Is it possible to, Obama passed that law in, was it 2012, that allowed the government to use propaganda on its own citizens? Do you remember that law?
I'm trying to remember. This is not the NDAA 2012?
No. NDAA is, that's the Authorization Act.
That's indefinite detention.
Yeah, that's indefinite detention. This is different. This is the use of propaganda.
Pause. So they're talking about Smith Mundt, which Bret clearly hasn't heard of.
So they authorized the use of propaganda on American citizens. So the CIA, instead of turning its, propaganda wing on the whole world, they're allowed to use it under the guise, of course, of national defense and national security. And sometimes they need to bullshit us.
Well, that is, in fact, exactly what we have discovered.
Yeah.
And
Wait,
why
pause.
it was so hard to convince
Pause.
people.
That is exactly what we have discovered. It's a new discovery. The rest of us have known about Smith Mundt, have been tracking this going on, but Bret, who's never heard of Smith Mundt, but still thinks that he should be at the front of this conversation, made a discovery about propaganda.
Well, correct. And this is also could be a reason why you have a group of people who don't believe anything because of that. And so when you're like, these dum-dums don't believe anything, well, wait a second. Once your government says we're allowed to feed you the same lies we feed to people all around the world, then the only sane position is like, I don't believe anything. I either know it or I don't know it. And that's it. And everything else, right? Belief is the enemy of knowing.
I did a show that came out a couple weeks ago called Smith Mundt is Everything. And the entire podcast was about Smith Mundt. You cannot lobby to be leading Rescue the Republic, all the freedom stuff, whatever, if you've never heard of the Smith Mundt Act and you don't understand how that is driving this whole thing. It's so like, it's amazing that this happened in the same show that he called us cynics and said that doesn't prove anything.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is the whole, like, it's like thinking that you like discovered water because it came out of the fountain at the gym.